I'm Captain Sarah from the Salvation Army Adelaide Congress Hall, sharing with you the second part of our Discipleship Experiment. And this is the part where last week we looked at what the passage was, we read it, we observed it, we noticed what stood out, what was different, and then we actively tried to think of what we could be doing to learn about how we can change our lives to be more like Christ, or learn something and try something and do something during the week. So the next part of this is, what have you tried? How did it go? How did you feel? And what difference did it make? This is the end of a science experiment where you review what's happened. You do take your learnings and then you sort of assess, okay, what am I going to take with me and what was a nice happy failure that I need to learn from? So I thought I'd share a bit about the passage from last week, was the road to Emmaus. And if you remember from my last one, the last video, I talked about how I was really struck by how Jesus called them a bit thick-headed for knowing stuff, but not actually having it move to their heart and doing anything about it. So my learning going into the week was to, what makes my heart burn when I talk about Jesus, when I do things with Jesus, when I'm actually spending time with Jesus? When am I spending time with him? So the real learnings for me going through this week was considering, what am I actually spending my time on? What is making my heart aflutter? And I noticed over the last couple of days in that week that I was spending a lot of time with not Jesus, but with Netflix and Stan. So it was quite an interesting observation. And when I watched those and was thinking about it, they didn't really stir me. They didn't float my boat. They didn't fill me spiritually at all. It's Netflix and Stan. It was a nice little simple easy distraction. It was a blobbing out in my quiet time rather than actively spending it with Jesus. So that's what I was really learning through this week. So what did I try? Well, the first thing I did was I got rid of the television from our bedroom. We used to go to sleep watching shows like The West Wing and those sorts of bits and pieces. Good stuff, but you go to sleep to it. It's not actively focusing on it. So I got rid of it and I started a book. Now I've got lots of books that I'm in the middle of, and this one I thought, no, I'm actually going to read it intentionally to see what Jesus is going to teach me through it. So I started reading this book and it was really good, and I'm going to intentionally try to finish it as well. And that was one of the biggest learnings for me during this week after that passage. Just, what am I spending my time on? And focusing on what actually makes my heart burn. What am I growing in my faith with Jesus with? And it wasn't Netflix or Stan. It was actually intentionally reading something that will grow me in that manner. Because as you all know, in order to change and be like Jesus, sometimes it's not the biggest drastic life changes that you need to do. It's just little things. It's just little steps. It's like, I started this puzzle here about a year or something ago when I was given it. But little by little, piece by piece, it's managed to be finished. It's lovely double-sided color gradient frustratingness. It's been done. It's been sorted. Because little by little changes, little bits and little pieces in made a huge difference. So that's kind of what I was going on for this week, and I'm sharing it with you because hopefully it encourages somebody to talk about what they learned through this passage, what they tried through this passage, what they did, what they failed, what they laughed about, and what they've really learned through reading Bible studies in this way. So that was my kind of pondering up, what fires me up and what gets me thinking and growing towards Christ-likeness rather than blobbing out. So next week, this coming week, we've got a new passage. And this passage continues on in those appearances of Jesus after Easter, where the disciples were waiting, were struggling to figure out what's going on in their world, a bit like ours at the moment. The world has changed, their lives have changed, and how are they going to go forward? So the next passage we'll be looking for is another one where Jesus appears and changes things and stirs things up. It's the passage from John 20 verses 19 to 31, where Jesus appears to disciples in a locked room and speaks specifically to Thomas. So we encourage you to read that verse, do the SOAP understanding of it, break it down, what stands out, what's different, and then think, what can I do about this? What can I learn from this and try throughout my week? And then share it with others. Captain Shane will be sharing his breakdown of that passage in a couple of days, and then he'll share at the end of that week what God has been teaching him and what he's done through that. So we're really looking forward to catching up with many of you, hearing what God is teaching you through these passages and this way of studying. And like an experiment, let's keep trying and see what happens. We just ask your blessing as you go forward, and have a great week. See you later.